On August 8, 1968, two events took place in Miami that marked a turning point in American politics. One was the Republican Party convention in Miami Beach. The delegates were overwhelmingly white, affluent, and suburban. Their party had failed to win the presidency in 7 of the last 9 general elections, yet they chose as their candidate a man whose name at the time was synonymous with lost elections, Richard Nixon.
But I have news for you. This time there's a difference. This time we're going to win.
Nixon was about to pull off the most stunning comeback in American politics. The other event took place 8 miles away in Miami's Liberty City neighborhood. A black protest turned into a battle with police. In 1968, America looked like a country at war with itself. Its cities were in flames. Its university campuses were battlegrounds. Its leaders were the targets of assassins. Two Americas were emerging from the mayhem. On the convention floor, Richard Nixon made it clear he was listening to the voice of only one of them.
It is the voice of the great majority of Americans, the forgotten Americans, the non-shouters, the non-demonstrators. This, I say to you tonight, is the real voice of America.
Nixon brought down the curtain on the liberal 60s that night. He ushered in a long period of polarization that would define the political culture for decades to come. How he did it is the flip side of the 60s story. Looking back on it, Richard Nixon seems the man least likely to strike a chord with America in the radical 60s. He was the nation's most famous square, the very caricature of a 50s politician.
He was a strange person to succeed in politics. He was a loner. He didn't particularly like people, but he was a very smart man and a very driven man.
He projected the image of the ideal family guy, the average Joe who wanted the same things most people did: a home in the burbs, 2 kids, 2 cars, and all the latest household gadgets. America in the prosperous post-war 50s was a nation spellbound by consumer goods. An expanding middle class was always trying to keep up with the Joneses. Dick Nixon had come from humble beginnings and understood their aspirations well.
Richard Nixon always had a very interesting and intimate relationship to consumerism as a mood. When he ran for Congress, his campaign office would sell things like toasters and clocks and small appliances at cost. During his Senate campaign, you could win a prize if you answered the phone, "Win with Nixon," kind of like a radio station. And this kind of consumerism was very much at the heart of his appeal. The idea was Richard Nixon was the guy to help you achieve the American dream, this suburban middle-class lifestyle. This kind of hucksterism made liberals so uncomfortable, it made them cringe. But it didn't make all Americans cringe.
But there was another Nixon, the political hatchet man who would stop at nothing to get ahead. During the early years of the Cold War, he made his name as a communist witch hunter, exposing Reds in government. And he smeared political opponents by hinting they were communists too.
It seems almost every election something dirty was going on. When he ran for the Senate against Helen Gahagan Douglas, Nixon ran against her as the Pink Lady, pink meaning communist. And this was rather vile.
It earned him the name that would dog him the rest of his career, Tricky Dick.
You either loved him or you hated him. He was that kind of a politician. He was a man who wanted the job fiercely, and he would do anything he could to get that job.
He was a congressman by the time he was 33. He was a senator by the time he was 37. He was like a rocket. He was like a meteor. He was like a satellite in orbit.
But when Dwight Eisenhower tapped him as his running mate in 1952, Nixon's enemies saw a chance to get even. They accused him of taking illegal campaign gifts. Ike was about to dump him, but Nixon, always resourceful, pulled a clever play from his book of political tricks. He used the new medium of television to take his case directly to the living rooms of Middle America.
We did get something, a gift. You know what it was? It was a little Cocker Spaniel dog, black and white, spotted. And our little girl, Tricia, the 6-year-old, named it Checkers. And I just want to say this right now, that regardless of what they say about it, we're going to keep him.
It was the kind of cynical ploy that Nixon would turn to time and time again in his career. And it worked. Ike was swamped with telegrams of support for Nixon. Nixon was suddenly the pinup boy for 50s America.